more or less exactly a week since Donald Trump won the election or was declared the winner, and we've since seen that he won by a massive margin. This was not a close election. Certainly not anywhere near as close as we were told it would be. He's the Republicans won the Senate. I don't know if the House is confirmed already, but it's pretty much certain to be Republican. Um, and Trump is not waiting with his appointments to his cabinet. He's appointed quite a few people already, and some of them are very interesting appointments. Some of them are what we would say positive, and in some cases very positive. I think better than we'd expect. In other cases, I don't know who they are, and luckily James Valliant is here with me. Welcome to the Daily Objective. We're talking today, as mentioned, about Trump's appointments. Should we go one by one with some of them? And since this is a channel that since October 7th has been focused on the Middle East, let's start with the appointment of Mike Huckabee, former governor of Arkansas, is it?
Yes,
Uh,
governor of Arkansas
and
and father
Fox
of,
News host,
yeah.
former presidential candidate, not nominee, but I think he did well when he ran. He is going to be the U.S. ambassador to Israel. James, is that a good sign?
I do. He is a former clergyman as well. So he's deeply from the religious right, but being ambassador to Israel is a sort of a safe place to put someone on the religious right, it seems to me. But he is a fierce supporter of Israel. He's always been a fierce supporter of Israel. And he was on the cutting edge on that. In terms of must destroy Hamas, must destroy Hezbollah, Israel must win. He's in that camp, the most fierce of the pro-Israel. I mean, and it is compared to what? No one in the American Republican Party is as consistent as we are, say, here at the channel, or even close. But as Republicans go, Huckabee he's a longtime Trump loyalist. He was one of the first people back in 2016 to declare for Trump, although he was a candidate for president. Trump made his daughter his press secretary, and now she's the governor of Arkansas, where her dad used to be governor. But he's fiercely pro-Israel, and so I think being ambassador to Israel. I'd note one thing: of all of his ambassadors, the UN ambassador and the ambassador to Israel were named first, and both are strongly pro-Israel. And I think that very fact, naming the Israeli ambassador among all your ambassadors to specific countries first, sends a signal, and sending someone who's so strong on Israel, I think, sends a very, very strong message. The UN ambassador, Stefanik, I think
Wait,
she's,
wait,
yeah,
because I want to give her her
yeah,
whole
her own,
segment of
yeah.
the show.
But
But
note that it is the
yes.
diplomatic and national security appointments that he's coming out with first. Again, I think that sends a good, strong signal to the world. Look, orientation here is going to be pro-Israel right off the bat. You're going to see that with other names that we talk about.
Yeah, I was watching some videos from some American left-wing news channels, and I enjoyed it very much, specifically when they talk about Huckabee and how dangerous he is and how disappointed people will be. And then they showed a clip of him saying different things about Israel, like saying that there was no such thing as Palestinian, like saying I don't like using words like settlement and occupation. Now, I don't really have that much of a problem with settlements, and I don't think the settlers, many of them do. It is used kind of as a negative thing, but so is Zionist. I mean, settlements, it doesn't, once you say illegal settlement, that's a different thing. And yeah, occupation, of course, also not is a word that's loaded. It is an accusation against Israel. He doesn't like the use of those words. I mean, that is such a big shift automatically in U.S. policy towards Israel. And yeah, PC, thank you for the super chat. PC says the dark days of Biden are soon over. Yes, emphasis on the word soon. We've talked even before the election about the fact that even a Trump victory means there's still 2.5 months of Biden, and that's bad in many ways. One of the ways you can kind of tell from this video we're about to watch of Biden yesterday or the day before answering a question from an Israeli journalist.
President Biden, do you think that you can get a hostage deal by the end of your term?
Think you can keep from getting hit in the head by a camera behind you? All right. Thank you all.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know if that was heard well. I didn't hear it that well, but the question was, do you think you can get the hostages released by the end of your term? And he said, do you think you can keep from getting hit on your head by the camera behind you? Which is, you know, such a despicable way to answer a question like this. Yes, it's a tough question, mostly because the answer is very obviously no. If somehow, the hostages end up being either rescued or released in some deal, I would not give credit to Biden in either case. But Jesus Christ, what kind of an answer is that?
Completely irresponsible. And look at what's happened. I mean, the whole operation of negotiations and Qatar is gone. So no, there's no prospect for even what Biden was hoping for. And now he's making light of the fact that there are still hostages there. I, yeah, it's a despicable answer, and it shows why America needs a different direction with their policy towards Israel and Iran. And I think that Trump's appointments are signaling that.
Thank you, Bull Moose, for the super chat. Bull Moose says, uh, you'd have a very hard time finding someone more Zionist than an evangelical, but I'm worried it's his religious opinion rather than an objective one. I mean, it's definitely his religious opinion rather
Oh,
than an
yeah.
objective one. And
Well, let
it's
me make a point about that. You know, a lot of these people do have religious convictions. This is going to be Republicans. And there's, a plus and a minus to that. If you make it the essence of your policy, the source of your policy, that will inevitably cause problems. That will inevitably cause problems. Let me suggest, though, that the appointment to being ambassador to Israel is the safest thing you can do with your most religious pick. It's not as though we put him in charge of abortion policy or some health and things that might involve science. It's really targeted to that.
I'm not sure a religious person could be worse than the person Trump is going to appoint for health, but we'll talk about that
Well,
another
that's
day.
we're all holding our breath for that, which could be very, very bad. And I think Robert Kennedy Jr. is going to be somewhere, and anywhere is too close to the levers of power. But look, these guys so far, these men and women that he's appointed, do seem to have a moral compass. Whether we agree with the roots of that moral compass or not is another matter. But what we're not seeing are unscrupulous authoritarians, let me put it that way. People who seem to be, it's like going to being promised a rap concert and you really get the Black Eyed Peas or something, or Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood instead of a war picture, a horror picture or something. These guys seem to be pretty tame. They have records, and let me suggest values independent of Trump, even if they are Trump loyalists. I mean, it's a good thing to be Trump loyalist to some degree. He doesn't want people undermining his policy. On the other hand, would they be fanatical Trump loyalists? These people seem to have their own independent portfolios and their own independent moral compass. And I think that's a good thing.
James, you are, if not in actual age, then at least at heart, younger than I am. So that reference, I'm sure, makes sense. In some ways that I don't understand the Black Eyed Peas thing. But yeah, look, uh, anything we say that's positive is in the context of, none of this is what we would ideally want if our ideas were mainstream. This is not what you would see. It is in the context of the possible decisions and appointments that could have been made. And of course, there is no doubt that for 4 years, we are going to be, praising some policies. We are going to be criticizing some policies. Every time we criticize these policies, some people in the chat will immediately type TDS, just like people, when we talk about Israel, immediately type Free Palestine and put a PLO flag. But we will do that, and we will piss off everybody in some way or another. But yeah, again, within a certain context, these are better. Again, better than it could have been. Thank you, Bonnie, for the super chat. Thank you, PC, for another super chat. PC says, Razi and James, Biden saying that remark shows the man he is. Um, Yes, but also, Daniel, I don't know if we have the other video that also shows something about who Biden is, at least today. If we do, yes. Right, there's, oh, there's the audio.
He's playing. He's playing.
He's playing?
Yeah. He's playing.
He's trying too hard.
He's playing.
Well, you can keep playing it. I will talk over it because, yeah, he's being asked some questions, and that's less of an issue than, uh, this is he's struggling to walk. Now, I've seen people in such situations, let's say, but in very different contexts. He is, this is funny and but mostly sad. He is kind of out of it in many ways, and that doesn't excuse what he said, obviously, but it could very much be that like this. But it also says something. I saw Douglas Murray being interviewed about Biden and mentioning that. What does that tell you about the Democratic Party that chose to keep him there, and that nobody serious challenged him and said, look, he can't be president even if you agree with his ideas because he is, too far gone.
Yeah, Democrats really faced a terrible credibility issue this time around. I mean, inflation was transitory and then non-existent, and Biden, oh, he's right as rain until the moment everyone can see at the debate that he's not right as rain. And there's so many issues that it just accumulated, I think, made the Democrats less than credible this time. And that credibility issue, I think, really hurt Miss Harris. Yeah. Now, I've walked through sand that ungracefully myself, just for the record. And I'm not sure I could have answered questions coherently as I was stumbling across sand like that. But the truth is, irrespective of even the video we just saw there, obviously Biden is not up for the most important job in the world right now. So no, yeah, that credibility gap was terrible. And we're getting a much more energetic president, for good or ill. We're at least getting a more energetic president who's not so out of it. And like I say, for good or ill.
Kathleen says, "Who put him on sand?" Yeah, I mean, look, whoever was making sure we don't see too much of the real Biden, up until the election, when he eventually had a debate and we saw enough of him that he couldn't keep running. I guess they're not that concerned about it now. But of course, he does have 2 more months, and I think certainly Israel has a lot to fear. Yair asks in the chat, is Michael Waltz pro-Israel? And I think that is the next nomination we can talk about. And since I don't know anything about him, I'm going to ask James.
I think he is pro-Israel. My worry with Congressman Waltz being named the National Security Advisor is that he's one of the most anti-Ukraine. He wants a peace deal in just exactly the worst ways that Trump has articulated wanting a peace deal with Ukraine. So I think it's on the issue of Ukraine that I would be concerned about Mr. Waltz. He's another kind of howdy-doody type of character, but on the other hand, he is not the friend of Ukraine, it seems to me, and it would be eager to cut a deal for Crimea and part of Donbass. But the practical problem is, I'm not sure Russia is willing to cut a deal. It may be a lot harder. Mr. Trump comes in with a very bold claim that by the time he's inaugurated, he will have cut a deal on Russia and Ukraine. I think, practically speaking, that may be a real challenge, Mr. Trump. I think that may have been big talk that he may not be able to deliver on. But that's my hope, even, that he can't deliver on it. But Mr. Waltz is to get back to your question, he's very pro-Israel. And again, that's the interesting thing here. These people, Trump named his national security and foreign policy people first: National Security Advisor, Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, CIA, that kind of thing, UN ambassador to Israel. So he's named his foreign policy and national security people. That sets a great tone. But Waltz is, while he's among all these other guys very fiercely pro-Israel, he's also, if I was to name one politician in DC who is the poster child, if you will, for Trump's position on let's negotiate Ukraine, it would be Congressman Waltz.
Somebody said in the chat, Newsom was asked to run instead of Biden, but he declined the offer. He'll likely run in 2018. Yeah, it's very likely that Gavin Newsom will run for the Democratic nomination in 2018. And there's a big question, especially since he won't be running against an incumbent. Sometimes people who are kind of assumed to be nominees or potential winners of a presidential election don't want to run against an incumbent because you're less likely to win than when the president is not running. President will not be running in 4 years. So, but what's interesting to me is, and makes me is kind of hopeful, or it might be wishful thinking, is are any of these, if some of these people who are better, who are nominated to important positions, will that make them decent challengers for Vance in 2018? Because, of course, you assume the vice president is kind of going to easily take the nomination. And one person I'm wondering if he might be a challenger is Trump's pick for Secretary of State, Marco Rubio.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Marco Rubio has more experience in the Senate than Vance does, and he's run for president before. And if he makes a big impression, yeah, secretaries of state often do run for president. Since the days of Thomas Jefferson, right, who was George Washington's Secretary of State. So it is can be a launching pad, not the most frequent, but it can be a launching pad. And Rubio certainly run for president again. But here again, we've got a person, pretty mild-mannered kind of guy, but fierce defender of Israel. That is to say, a guy with what appears to be a moral compass, but on the other hand, he's been a consistent, strong advocate for Israel. And again, that's a theme running through all of these picks. They are some of the most pro-Israel figures in Washington that have been chosen to lead his foreign policy and national security teams. And that's a really good sign for Israel. And I think some bad news for Iran.
Yeah, and Daniel writes here in the Zoom chat, Blinken 2028, too soon, Daniel. Come on.
I doubt that. Blinken does not have a history of electoral politics like Senator Rubio does.
Yeah,
Just
let's hear from Senator Rubio in I think one of his finer moments earlier this year, being accosted by Code Pink, as members of Congress sometimes are, demanding a ceasefire or that he support a ceasefire. Let's listen to his response.
Senator Rubio, will you call for a ceasefire?
No, I will not.
in Gaza?
On the
Senator
contrary.
Rubio,
Are you filming it?
wait,
So I want you guys to get this. I want them to destroy every element of Hamas they can get their hands on. These people are vicious animals who did horrifying crimes. And I hope you guys post that.
And what about the civilians that are being killed every day?
Hamas should stop hiding behind civilians, putting civilians in the way. Hamas knew that this was going to lead to this. So Hamas should stop building their military installations underneath hospitals.
So you don't care that 15,000 have died? You don't care about the babies that are being killed every day?
I think it's horrifying. I think it's terrible, and I think Hamas is 100% to blame. That's what I think. Make sure you post that, please.
Absolutely beautiful. Yeah, if I was gonna nitpick, I would say, well, maybe don't take their numbers at face value. But of course, in a conversation like that, that is absolutely something that I could have happened to me, and I don't think I would have put it that perfectly.
That is a great example of what I mean. Rubio has been a fierce and consistent supporter of Israel in all of this. And from a moral perspective, a rare thing to find someone morally, with moral principles that he will apply consistently. And no, this is Hamas's fault. And ultimately, other things he said, for example, about Iran and Iran being behind all this, all of that, the moral clarity about that makes me feel very good about America's policy towards Israel, because I couldn't have chosen a better person from the Senate when it comes to Israel policy. And you could just see it there from that clip. Yes,
and
Mark, clarity.
Mark in the chat says typical antagonistic journalism. No, that's not even journalism. Those are Code Pink activists who do that. They accost members of Congress and demand that they basically, and that's the thing, like these despicable human beings who go and try to take the moral high ground while supporting the savages who want to finish the job that Hitler started and say it themselves. That they try to take the moral high ground. This is how you respond to them. You respond to them with that kind of moral certainty. You don't respond to them with, look, we're trying to do whatever we can to protect. No, you tell them, no, you are on the side of the bad guys. I am on the side of the good guys, and I will stay on that side. Yeah, James.
Yeah, that's the guy we want as Secretary of State right now, huh? Someone who's that morally clear about the evil people in this world, that morally clear about his support of Israel. As I say, I couldn't have picked a better senator when it comes to Middle East policy than Rubio.
Yeah. Thank you, PC, for another super chat. PC said Saudi accused Israel of genocide, backed Iran. Well, yeah, the Saudis accused Israel of genocide a few days ago. I was wondering whether we should do a show about that, but I think we've been clear on the whole idea of peace with Saudi Arabia, of Israel begging for peace with any of these savage countries. Even, yes, even our friends and allies, the Saudis and the Qataris and Dubai and or the Emirates, they're not our friends. They're not our friends, and we should remember that, and we shouldn't beg them for peace. I would love to see a day when we don't have, at the very least, we don't have any diplomatic or economic relations with them. I know
You know,
that's
with Huckabee, I think that he will be a big, especially Huckabee, he will be a big promoter of getting the Abraham Accords geared back up. He will want peace between Mecca and Jerusalem, and he will be aiming for it in every way he can. Now, he's won't. The good news is I don't think he'll sell out Israel in order to get it. But I think any negotiations with authoritarian Muslim leaders is a sellout, in effect, of Western values. But given that context, yeah,
yeah, and the people, some people are saying, yeah, PC, that the end of that super chat was slightly unclear, but I'm pretty sure what he was talking about was the Saudi Crown Prince statement that Israel is committing genocide. And yeah, so and thank you, Mark, for the super chat. Mark says, enjoy your show. Thank you. Yeah, Elise Stefanik. So she is actually, before I get your thoughts on her, Daniel, do we have a clip of her?
Yes, just give me a sec.
I hope, yeah.
Ms. McGill, at Penn, does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Penn's rules or code of conduct? Yes or no?
If the speech turns into conduct, it can be harassment, yes.
I am asking, specifically calling for the genocide of Jews, does that constitute bullying or harassment?
If it is directed and severe or pervasive, it is harassment.
So the answer is yes.
It is a context-dependent decision, Congresswoman.
It's a context-dependent decision. That's your testimony today, calling for the
Okay, all right,
genocide.
all right. We saw this at the time. Sorry, I know. Yeah, this horrible. That's just a disgusting smile on her face, which, you know, I don't. Okay, I'm not going to psychologize there, but what a horrible, horrible woman, and Elise Stefanik doing a great job there. So that is
UN ambassador.
Yeah.
UN ambassador. Can you imagine an ambassador at the United Nations articulating that kind of defense of Jews?
I can. And the reason I can, and I know I'm going to get the Trump supporters angry here, is because I've seen it before with my favorite person in kind of frontline U.S. politics, John Bolton, who you know, was UN ambassador, had previously said something about taking down 10 floors of the UN would improve it. I would take a bit more than 10 floors, but actually the building is fine. I just take the people out of it. But yeah,
Huckabee had a great line on the
UN.
Huckabee had a great line on the UN just last night on television. He said we should saw off that portion of Manhattan and let it float into the East River. And that kind of tells you, though, Stepanek is going to be, I think, a very fierce critic of the United Nations as an institution, especially when it comes to Israel policy. And you can see how fiercely she can come back to some of America's top university presidents and jam the anti-Semitism issue right down their throats. And that is a good thing. If we have someone defending Israel and Jews like that, if she can just duplicate that in the United Nations, short of obviously the United Nations, it's a terrible moral compromise for America to even be involved in it. We should have nothing to do with it. There should be no UN ambassador, Bolton or Stefanik. But the point is, if you're going to have an ambassador, some representation in that evil organization, which itself is a horrible moral compromise, at least let them have some moral backbone, like a Bolton or like perhaps Ms. Stefanik will be. She will defend American and Israeli interests, I think, against the horrific crowd of dictators and terrorist supporters that unfortunately constitutes the United Nations.
Yeah. Enric says also Nikki Haley was good at the UN. Yeah, Nikki Haley I think was great, and that's look, yeah, we've advocated and will continue to advocate for leaving the UN, but in lieu of that, having somebody who will not immediately either side with the savages or apologize to them for not joining them in savagery and throwing your allies under the bus. That is a massive step forward. So well done with that appointment. I'm sure there. Oh, of course, there was the defense secretary talk about. Yeah, I was telling James in the production meeting. I sometimes on my U.S. trips I'll watch Fox News, but and I saw that he's a Fox News host, but he's apparently on the morning show, which is not a show that I watch because I don't wake up in time for that. So, but yeah, he is a veteran. He's not he's not completely out of nowhere. He's not just some random commentator. He's there's some relevance there. Then again, there's kind of less experience at those levels than anybody you're typically used to. And when I was watching CNN and MSNBC today, that's very much a bad thing as far as they're concerned. Oh, and I watched some Young Turks as well. That was hilarious. But is it a bad thing? And is it a bad thing his relative lack of experience? And is there any good in this appointment, James?
Oh, he knows the military. He knows the military in and out. He's a veteran of both Iraq and Afghanistan. He has 2 Bronze Stars, and he has been devoted to the cause of the U.S. military. He's written books. He is most associated with the idea of getting rid of this woke stuff out of the Defense Department and military readiness. And so he would be someone who would advocate a military build up in the sense of technology and hardware and things like that, but he would also be an advocate of getting rid of the concerns about DEI hires and transgender concerns within the U.S. military. He believes that has corrupted the U.S. military. Now, he does not have a political track record like these other people do, where you can really kind of see what they were before, and in some cases even independently of Trump. In his case, he has no political experience whatever, and that might be a good thing in the sense that he brings in a fresh pair of eyes, because I think there are a lot of people within the military who do support Trump. And I think in one sense, that's one of the departments of the government which will be less inherently hostile to whoever Trump puts there. So maybe the safest place to put someone who doesn't have great political chops and who may come from a place that just defends them. And let me put it this way. I think there are a lot of young people in the military who are pleased with this pick, seeing it as restorative of the U.S. military. Let me put it that way. But we'll see. He doesn't have a track record. I mean,
yeah. And Enric asks, does the defense secretary believe in winning? The one appointed, I'm guessing, is more likely to believe in winning than the current one, who I've not heard a statement from him that doesn't include the phrase de-escalation, which is really despicable considering what de-escalation means in the context of the current.
I have heard Major Hegseth say, when you fight a war, you choose your battle carefully, he said. But when you fight a war, win it, and win it thoroughly. I think those were his exact words, which is pretty good for coming from a potential defense secretary.
Yeah. And again, the bar is so low at the moment that I think he clears it by a country mile. We have a question here. At some point, or a statement, at some point, ARCUK will have to do a show to explain their dislike of RFK Jr. Already done it at least twice, I think. But yes, we will talk about him, of course. I believe he might be in the next 4 years or however long it takes for him to piss off Trump and get fired, the person we talk about probably most in this
Yeah,
administration.
he's likely to have a position, but we just don't know what it is yet. It'll probably be connected with healthcare or the Institute of Medicine or something. So I don't know.
And quickly, Enric asks, is he against just war theory? Not RFK Jr., but the defense secretary.
I would doubt that any of these people are really in their heart of hearts against just war theory. I think to some degree it has polluted the thinking of the most right-wing American generals. You go that far to say it. I think that they are concerned, way too concerned, for example, about collateral damage and things like that, finding the least destructive means when obviously winning the war is the priority. So I think that just war theory has corrupted both sides pretty thoroughly, but to the least of let me put it this way, the least impact of just war theory will be found on that side.
Yeah. Okay, I have to quickly address it. Chris says, he says later on it was a joke, but he earlier said the Young Turks is my favorite place to go for hysterics. Something I noticed today when I was watching some clips from the Young Turks from MSNBC, I forget her name, but one of the main anchors is who's this? I'm gonna okay. Anyway, people with shows on MSNBC and the Young Turks, which respond. They talk about a nomination, then they respond with this such phony laughter. Really, the television commentary version of the laughing emoji, yeah, they're really, you can see they're dead inside basically from what's going on. It's I don't know, it has there's some funny elements to it, but yeah, we're going to talk about such people a lot. Thank you, Enric, for the last minute super chat. We are speaking of just war theory. We're about to talk about this video. ARCUK members may have seen me post it yesterday on the politics group. But we're going to talk about this video where an Israeli television crew went to Palestinians, talked to them, and we're going to see what they had to say. Yeah, anyway, we're 3 minutes over time. Thanks, James. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We'll see you in a couple of minutes on The Reality Show.
Be safe.